When I tell you to become the man she regrets losing, I'm not talking about putting on a performance or pretending to be someone you're not. I'm talking about stepping into the version of yourself that you were always capable of becoming but maybe never fully prioritized. A breakup, a separation, or even emotional distance has a way of revealing the parts of ourselves we've been neglecting. And instead of seeing that as a loss, I want you to view it as an invitation to rise. Because the truth is, people rarely regret losing someone who remained exactly the same. They regret losing someone who grows, who elevates, who transforms with intention and clarity. Most men think winning a woman back starts with words. They think it begins with long messages, explanations, or emotional declarations. But real influence, real magnetism, doesn't come from convincing. It comes from becoming. The moment you stop chasing validation and start cultivating self-respect, you shift the entire dynamic. When a man aligns with purpose, he becomes steady, he becomes rooted. He becomes someone whose presence is felt long after he has walked out of the room, and that is what a woman remembers. Not the desperation, not the arguments, not the confusion. She remembers the man who stands firm in who he is, who pursues growth instead of approval. This kind of transformation isn't about showing her you've changed, it's about genuinely changing. It's not about getting her attention, it's about earning your own respect. See, a man who lacks direction often becomes reactive. He responds to loss with fear, and fear makes him cling. But a man who accesses his deeper self responds with reflection. He steps back and asks, what version of me have I been living as, and who do I know I can become? That question alone can change the trajectory of a man's life. You might not realize it right now, but heartbreak is one of the few moments in life where your ego is forced to be quiet. And when the ego quiets, the truth finally gets a chance to speak. That truth may tell you that you've been settling. It may reveal that you've put your ambitions on hold. It may show you that you've been living beneath the level of your own potential. And yes, sometimes it reveals that you relied on the relationship to feel whole, instead of coming into the relationship already whole. This is not a moment to judge yourself. This is the moment to reclaim yourself. When you start focusing on your growth, your mental health, your body, your career, your spiritual grounding, you begin to shift from scarcity to abundance. You stop thinking, how do I get her back? And you start thinking, how do I get myself back? And that shift is magnetic. A man who is rebuilding himself from the inside out carries a certain energy. Women feel it, people feel it, and more importantly, you feel it. Understand something very important. A woman cannot truly regret losing you until you give her something to regret. And that regret isn't triggered by anger or silence or pretending not to care. It's triggered when she looks at you, later, from a distance, and realizes you became the man she always hoped you would be, with or without her. You didn't crumble. You didn't collapse. You didn't stay stuck. You rose. Growth communicates something words never can. It says, I chose myself. It says, I didn't break. I rebuilt. It says, I am not defined by who stays or who leaves. I am defined by who I choose to become. And when a man reaches that level of consciousness, the question of whether she comes back becomes secondary. Because once you elevate, everything and everyone in your life has to rise to meet you or fall away. And when she sees that shift, when she witnesses that evolution, trust me, she feels it. She feels it in a way she cannot ignore. So if you're going to commit to anything in this season, commit to becoming. Commit to uncovering the depth, the power, the clarity within you. Commit to becoming the man who does not need to be chosen to feel worthy. The man who chooses himself first. Because when you evolve with intention, you don't have to chase anyone. They feel the loss, they feel the distance, and eventually they feel the pull. Rise into your next level and let your transformation speak louder than your pain. When I say give space instead of pressure, I'm not talking about playing games or following some cold, detached strategy. I'm talking about understanding human psychology on a deeper level. Understanding that people don't move toward what overwhelms them, they move toward what gives them room to breathe, room to feel, room to remember who you were to them without the noise of conflict or emotional intensity clouding their perception. When a relationship reaches a breaking point, emotions are already heightened. There's already tension, confusion, frustration, and in that moment, many men respond with panic. They reach out. They try to fix everything overnight. They push for clarity or connection because the silence feels unbearable. But pressure does not create closeness. Pressure creates resistance. When you push against someone who is trying to pull away, all you do is remind them why they felt the need to step back in the first place. And I want you to understand this on a deep, almost spiritual level. Space is not absence. It is opportunity. It is the space where clarity grows, where perspective returns, and where emotional reset becomes possible. Most people underestimate the power of distance. They think silence means defeat. They think giving someone space means they're losing their chance. But silence is not a statement against you. It is a moment for both of you to recalibrate. When you give a woman space, you're allowing her nervous system to settle. You're allowing the emotional fog to lift. You're giving her room to feel the natural pull she once felt toward you. Because that pull cannot surface when you're constantly in her face trying to fix something she's not ready to fix. And here's the deeper truth. Space is not just for her. It's for you too. It's for you to calm your own mind, to ground yourself, to remember that your worth is not tied to whether someone chooses you today, this week, or even this month. When you give space, you're training yourself to become emotionally steady, to not respond to fear with desperation. You're breaking the cycle of reactive behavior that leads to regret. And when you reach that place of emotional discipline, you stop trying to control the outcome and begin to control your response to it. That shift alone changes everything, because emotional control is magnetic. A man who can remain calm while everything feels uncertain holds a kind of power, not over others but over himself, and that power is felt. When you stop pushing, when you stop crowding, when you stop demanding answers, you allow a natural curiosity to return. She begins to wonder why you're so calm. She begins to wonder what changed. She begins to notice the silence not as distance but as mystery. Pressure pushes people out. Calmness pulls them in. Think about it from your own life. Whenever someone has tried to force you into a decision, didn't you resist? Didn't you feel your guard go up? But when someone gave you the space to think, to breathe, to choose freely, didn't your mind soften? Didn't your perspective shift? Human beings crave autonomy. We want to make decisions that feel like our own, not decisions we were pressured into. And love is no different. A woman must return because she wants to, not because she feels cornered, guilty, or overwhelmed. And space is what allows that want to resurface. Giving space also reveals something important about you. It shows you trust yourself. It shows you trust the connection you once shared. It shows you believe in your own value enough to step back without falling apart. And that kind of self-assurance is deeply attractive. It's the opposite of insecurity. It's the opposite of fear. It's the energy of a man who knows his life doesn't end because someone took a step away. And let me say this clearly, giving space is not abandonment. It is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is respect. Respect for her boundaries, respect for the emotional moment, and respect for yourself. It says, I will not suffocate you into connection. I will allow you the dignity of choosing in your own time. And when she feels that respect, when she witnesses your steadiness, when she notices that you're not trying to manipulate or force the situation, everything softens, everything shifts. People return to what feels safe, stable, and grounded. Space creates that foundation, so don't fear the silence. Don't fear the distance. Don't rush the process. Stand still, stand calm, and let clarity do its work for both of you. Because sometimes the strongest move you can make is simply giving what you both need most room to breathe and time to remember. When I say rebuild your life, not the relationship, I'm inviting you to shift your focus from what you can no longer control to what you can absolutely shape with intention. After a breakup, or during any period of emotional distance, it's natural to want to repair the connection first. It's natural to want to have the difficult conversation, to clarify what went wrong, to fix the cracks before they spread. But that impulse often comes from fear, not wisdom. It comes from the anxiety of loss, not the clarity of self-awareness. And when you move from fear, you end up trying to restore something before you've restored yourself. That's why the foundation never feels steady. That's why the dynamic never truly changes. Rebuilding your life is about redirecting your energy toward the parts of you that became dormant, neglected, or reshaped by the relationship. Because whether we admit it or not, many of us lose pieces of ourselves over time. We lose routines we once valued. We lose ambition that once burned bright. We lose independence because we wrapped our identity too tightly around someone else. And it's in the quiet after loss, when everything feels stripped away, that you realize how much of your life needs rebuilding. But the beauty is that this pause offers you something rare, the chance to reconstruct yourself with intention rather than habit. When you begin investing in your life again, your career, your passions, your friendships, your physical health, you're not running away from the relationship. You're reconnecting with the man you were before it and the man you want to become after it. You're regaining momentum. You're rooting yourself in purpose. And purpose is powerful. Purpose makes you magnetic. Purpose brings you back into alignment with your own potential. You see, when a woman looks back and sees that you didn't fall apart, that you didn't become stagnant, that you didn't let heartbreak define you, she feels something. She feels a shift in the story she once told herself about you. She begins to realize that you are not the man who breaks, you are the man who builds. And people are drawn to builders, men who are anchored, men who are creating, men who rise even when things fall apart. But remember this, rebuilding your life is not a performance. It's not about showing her you're improving. True transformation has nothing to do with external validation. This is not about broadcasting your progress or trying to prove something. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that got buried under emotional survival. It's about choosing growth because staying the same is no longer an option. And the irony is, when your growth is real, you don't have to announce it. It becomes visible. It becomes felt. It becomes undeniable. Rebuilding your life also means addressing the inner terrain, your emotional patterns, your triggers, your old wounds. Because if you don't evolve internally, you'll recreate the same relationship dynamic even if she does return. You'll carry the same fears, the same insecurities, the same unresolved pain into the next chapter. And unhealed cycles only repeat themselves. So use this time to understand yourself deeply. Reflect on who you were in the relationship, what you tolerated, what you avoided, what you miscommunicated, and where you abandoned your own needs. This isn't about blame, it's about awakening. Reconnect with your goals, rebuild your discipline, strengthen your financial footing, reinvest in your creativity, spend time with the people who remind you of your worth, and most importantly, create a life that feels full, even in your own company. When you do that, you become grounded. You operate from abundance, not attachment. You no longer approach relationships from a place of needing someone to complete you, but from desiring someone to grow with you. And that shift changes not only how you move, but how people move around you. And here's the quiet truth that many men don't realize: when you rebuild your life, you don't just create the possibility of her return. You create a life where, if she doesn't return, you're still whole, still powerful, still aligned. That is real strength. That is real transformation. So rebuild your life not as a strategy, but as a declaration of who you choose to be now. Let your actions speak for you. Let your progress tell the story. Let your growth become the evidence of your resilience. Because when you rise from within, everything around you must rise to meet you, or move out of your way. When I talk about holding your value and setting new standards, I'm talking about elevating the very framework through which you navigate relationships. This isn't about becoming rigid or demanding. It's about recognizing that your worth is not negotiable and your peace is not a bargaining chip. After you've taken the time to grow, to reflect, to rebuild your life from the inside out, you enter a new chapter, not just as a man who is healed, but as a man who now understands the importance of boundaries, emotional integrity, and self-respect. And when she comes back, and yes, often she does, you cannot greet her as the same version of yourself she left behind. Growth requires a recalibration of the standards you live by. Too many men focus solely on winning her back. They don't think about what happens after. They don't think about the quality of the relationship they are allowing back into their lives. They don't think about whether the old dynamic even deserves to return. But when you evolve, when you rise into a higher version of yourself, you have to ask deeper, more difficult questions. Can she meet you at this new level? Can she honor the man you've become? Is she capable of contributing to the emotional and spiritual environment you now require to thrive? These are not selfish questions, these are essential questions. Because love without standards becomes sacrifice, and sacrifice without reciprocity becomes self-abandonment. Setting new standards means you no longer tolerate the patterns that once drained you, confused you, or diminished you. It means you approach connection from a place of clarity. It means you require honesty, not as a luxury, but as a foundation. It means you expect emotional maturity, not perfection, but accountability. It means you choose relationships that feel aligned, not relationships you have to shrink to maintain. And most importantly, it means you honor your own growth enough to protect it. When she returns, she's not returning to the man she walked away from. She's returning to a man who has grown through his pain, not collapsed under it. And that version of you must be greeted with reverence. By her, yes, but also by yourself. Because if you fall back into old habits, if you accept behaviors that once wounded you, if you bend your boundaries out of fear of losing her again, then all your growth becomes a performance instead of a transformation. And you deserve more than that. Holding your value also requires emotional courage. It requires the willingness to say no even when your heart still says, was. It requires the strength to walk away again if the relationship does not honor the man you're becoming. Not out of pride, not out of vengeance, but out of self-preservation. Because the man who elevates must protect his elevation. And a relationship that cannot grow with you will eventually pull you back into the version of yourself you've worked so hard to transcend. But here's the beautiful truth: when you hold your value, you don't have to demand anything. Your energy speaks for you. Your confidence communicates your expectations without a single word. Your peace becomes the boundary. Your presence becomes the standard. And a woman who truly loves you, who truly wants to be part of your life again, will rise to meet you there. Not because you forced her, but because your growth inspired her. Because your clarity awakened her own. Because she sees that being with you now requires a different level of emotional maturity, and she is willing to step into that space with you. And if she can't meet you at that level, your standards gently reveal the truth you need to see. Standards are not walls, they are filters. They allow in what aligns with you and naturally release what does not. So as you move forward, remember this: the man you've become deserves a relationship that reflects your evolution. A relationship built on mutual respect, emotional responsibility, and a shared commitment to growth. You are no longer chasing comfort. You are attracting alignment. Stand firm in what you now know about yourself. Stand firm in what you need. Stand firm in the value you've rebuilt from the ground up. Because when you honor your worth, you don't just protect your heart, you shape the future you truly deserve.